This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Hello and welcome to Dialogue. President Xi Jinping has delivered a televised New Year speech where he called 2021 a year of exceptional significance for China. What were some of the highlights of the speech? What were some of the major events in China in 2021? And what can we look forward to in 2022? To help us answer these questions, I'm joined by Dr. Wang Huiyao, a counselor of the China State Council, Miguel Geraci, former Undersecretary of State of the Ministry of Economic Development in Italy, and Anna Tangen, independent current affairs commentator. That's our topic. I'm Xu Qinduo. Happy New Year, gentlemen. So President Xi Jinping called 2021 a year of exceptional significance. Anna, I want to start with you. What's your take of China's year in 2021?
Well, it was a building year. I mean, China was able to simultaneously protect the health of its people and also the health of its economy, despite very, very strong headwinds. But, I want to comment on his speech in that he was extremely positive. He did not dwell on any of the negatives, any of the headwinds that we'll probably be talking about. He wanted his people to feel that confident, happy, proud, and hopeful for the future. So, when I look at this speech, what I hear is a man who's running a country, not one who's running for an office.
President Xi said, we have seen and experienced a resilient and a dynamic China, a country with amicable and respectful people, a country developing rapidly with each day, and a country making continual progress in all its undertakings.
Well, I mean, this basically sums up, and this is, as I said, despite very, very strong headwinds going against China, especially in the international press, a number of what appear to be disinformation campaigns. They're pushing forward this, China's bad. I mean, eradication of poverty. I mean, you go through the year and you have so many highlights for China, both in science with the Mars mission, et cetera. You had a lot of significant events, 40 years of Shenzhen, 30 years of Pudong in Shanghai. These have been areas where they started out as models, economic models, and then they have become standardized throughout China and have been very, very important to the development of China. So this year was building on previous years, and it has really shown that China can go its own way, both in terms of having its own system that is socialist in nature, going forward and saying, we need to have more people. We need to make sure that children are not spending their lives and times on video games or going to school basically 18 hours a day. And they also said very clearly that tech titans do not run the country. The country is above that. It's about the people, not the profits of a few.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a year full of landmarks, as the president said, and also full of changes, along with this pandemic prevention and containment, and of course international relations over there. So Huiyao, are you back?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you characterize the year 2021 for China?
Well, I think the year 2021 was really a remarkable year, a landmark year, because China celebrates the centennial of the CPC, but also what's more important, this year, China announced that it has completely get out of extreme poverty and lifted 800 million people out of poverty. That is really remarkable for the achievement of the mankind. But what's more, I think also China this year, while the whole world is fighting pandemic, China stood up as the backbone of a global supply chain, and China's import-export has actually hit a record high and largely stabilized the world economy and played like an engine for the global economy. And also, I think China has been making a lot of further efforts to starting the first 14th five-year plan, and also China is really striving for the next centennial goals, and so there are many things in between there. And but I think the most important is that China's sustained its 9% whatever economic growth, and so that has achieved over the target. That's a big stabilizer for the world, and also I think the Chinese people has been really much more rallied and much more confident, and also more strive for the better future of the next year and the next centennial. And I think this is President Xi highlighted all the achievement, but also he praised greatly the working class, all those people of all walks of life, all contributed to the success so far China has achieved.
He does, emphasize Chinese people from all walks of life, as you mentioned. He also mentioned about this, the year 2021 is kind of special, being, the convergence, basically linking the previous, centenary goals and the next centenary goals. Tell us more about that, especially for those who are not really following the Chinese politics there.
Exactly. I think since I think President Xi took over, and also actually has always been the also previous government objective is that China trying to lift the 800 million people out of poverty, and I think getting China out of this poverty is really on top of President Xi's mind, and he actually during his almost 10 years in his presidency, that has been achieved. That is really remarkable. Just since 18th Party Congress, China has lifted over 100 million extreme poverty. That is really at the very hardest, the last part of the poverty that has been eradicated during this period of time. So that's really, I think that's the to build a well-to-do, moderate, prosperous society, which I think is first centennial goal. So for the next centennial goal is that China will do that when the China People's Republic founded by 2049, which is another centennial, which China will build China into a modern society. So that, of course, we're going to do that through 2035, but also by 2049, China will become a modernized economy, and so the per capita and everything will be greatly enhanced. So the first centennial of basically, which is happened this year, is when the CPC founded the centennial, and next centennial is when PRC founded 100 years later. There's another great objective. So I think this is really a very productive way of working in the Chinese government society, that they have one 5-year plan after another 5-year plan, another long-term, mid-range, and also 5 years plan. And everything is planned. People have objective. Everybody's concerted efforts shoot for the great goal and grand objective. That's really good for the rally the people, and really great for people to work together. And that's really important to have a whole society approach to really achieve objectives that's led by the government, but also working through all the walks of life and the people of all the ethnic and all the groups, business, all the economic players, and also academia, and all the people that I think government played all very concerted efforts to achieving these two centennial goals.
Well, and obviously 2021 marks this 100th anniversary of the founding of the Communist Party of China. So, I mean, if history is a guide to the future, so what do you see, in the past 100 years of the CPC functioning as its leading force in China? And then, what do you see for the next near future or long-term development until 2049, when that's the 100 years anniversary of the founding of the Republic of China, 2049. Yeah.
A small subject, right? Okay. So I always think of it in three distinct phases. One, you had Mao, who united the country, brought it together. It was linguistic issues, getting everyone to speak the same language, a sense of identity. Then you had the opening up, the black cat, white cat, all this kind of stuff. And now we're kind of in this third era, where she has, in essence, taken a lot of the idealism that was present under Mao and kind of conjoined it with some of the pragmatism that was under Deng. And he's saying there's this middle road where China is able to make its own future, and there's no going back to some colonial domination or any kind of nonsense like that. But the last part is the most interesting, because when you start looking at 2049, I will probably not be here. I know that's sad for everybody, but
with the advancement of science, don't worry.
who knows? But the fact is that future generations are going to be responsible at that time for achieving these goals and continuing China's progress. So I think it's really important. People should pay attention to how much effort has gone into talking about children, developing growth models for them, making sure that they carry on the work of the last three great leaders.
Well, interestingly, picking up of what you said, the poverty eradication, that's a big achievement, obviously, by China, by the CPC. President Xi mentioned about his personal touch, about the poverty alleviation. He said, when he was young, who was sent to the rural area, obviously, he had some personal experience of, precisely what does the poverty feels. I have the experience. So that probably explains why, President Xi, I would say, spent overwhelming effort in this poverty eradication over there.
Absolutely. I mean, the 7 years he spent in the countryside in Shanxi province, that is really left a deep impression of him. How poor China was then, 4-5 decades ago, and also mind you, he started his work as a county party secretary in Hebei province, which is also a rural area of China. So he has really spent over a decade, basically working with people in the grassroots level and at particularly agriculture related. And so he sees firsthand how poor were China then. So I think that is really shows the dedication that he has achieved. When he came along, and he really emphasized elevating poverty, and that is really. Has mobilized all the government, all the companies, SOEs, all walks of life to really achieve that. So I think this is remarkable, because I think this has made China 10 years ahead of schedule of 2030 UN Sustainable Agenda SDG objective number 1, elevating the poverty. China realized that 10 years ahead of schedule. So I think this is really a great contribution to the 70% of global poverty reduction. That's very significant. So I think if China really has been managed well of its population, has been able to supply the world with all its export, imports, and the world is really largely at peace and the stability. So I think this is really significant. This is not only meaningful for China, but also very meaningful for the world. So I think this is something that President Xi has emphasized, and actually the picture shows he has actually won so many villagers and townships and all those rural areas throughout 2021 actually. And so also he was talking about this Yellow River Basin, about 9-10 provinces. He has all been to them in his past 10 years. That shows really how he cares about the grassroots, how he cares the rural farmers. And now we are talking about common prosperity. We are talking about 300 million migrant workers in the city now. That's the next objective. Let's work on raise the working class benefits, and also made them into middle class. I think that's really important. China now setting up this next centennial goal. The first is let's get common prosperity, and that's really important for the China to achieve, so that we can have a very not polarized rich and poor society, but well-to-do, building a largest middle class in the world.
And obviously this, poverty eradication and the common prosperity for the grassroots people, grassroots level, for example, it's all about really about the governing philosophy of the Chinese government. In the speech, President Xi mentioned about Chairman Mao's conversation with Huang Yanpei, and also he also pointed out the myriad of things we attend to boil down to matters concerning every household. I often think, if there's a one word to characterize, to sum up the Chinese philosophy, it looks like the people. Every household. Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and this is one of the things that I find very difficult living here in China is that you see the immense amount of care that the government puts and effort. Remember, just 10, 15 years ago, the UN said it's impossible to eradicate poverty. It's statistically impossible. No one should even attempt it. China's achieved that, and it shows a detailed, as you said, caring about the individual people in every single household. And that's how they were able to deal with this. And I contrast this with the criticisms of China, where they're trying to paint it as if China wants to arbitrarily torture people who are in Tibet, Xinjiang, or Hong Kong, or something like this. How can the person, and I would ask people who are watching this to think very carefully about, what he said. He laid a lot of the credit at the feet of the people, of everyone coming together, of the government. It wasn't about me, and what I did. Now you contrast that with what you would see in other countries, where this would have been an opportunity to just get up there and say, I'm the greatest, and everyone else is terrible, and just obey me, and this type of thing. And then you look at what he's talking about, a common prosperity. How can this be? Why don't people see that there's a real gap between the rhetoric and the reality that represents China? And this, I think, is something that people should take away from this speech. Here's something very positive, trying to encourage people, not trying to take credit.
As a leader here. Miguel?
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, good evening. Happy New Year. So what's your take of the President's speech of the year of 2021 in China?
Happy New Year to all of you and the viewers. I think 2021 is the year where China has shown that the right mix of controlling the pandemic, looking after the economy, and the welfare of the people have been three objectives that are not in conflict, but they can be achieved. And I think President Xi's reflections on this year reflect the relative success of China in terms of its system, which is different from other countries. But I also think, and I believe, it's adequate for China. It's adequate for the current stage of development of China. It's a model that China does not need to export to other countries. Western countries should not be, in a way, feel afraid or challenged by the success of China. Because, if I may, I want to extend the concept of common prosperity and the poverty alleviation that China, the first one, has reached already the poverty elimination. Common prosperity is more of a target. I think these are goals that the whole world should embrace. And that's why I think China could set the example of how successful it was in the poverty alleviation. The new challenge it has is to reach the common prosperity and really see if there is anything, and there is, that we can learn to do the same in the rest of Asia, in the rest of Africa, and even in the rest of Europe and the United States.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Thank you for that. Miguel mentioned about the China model. Of course, China never, from the government or officially, say there is a Chinese model. But people, anyway, people use that term to describe China's development or China's way of handling this pandemic. Zero COVID practice, basically. They say dynamic zero COVID, precise targeting if there's any small outbreak so far.
And it's been marvelously successful. When you start looking at the number of dead, the impact on economies, families, individuals, China is, even though you don't want to say it, is a model for how you follow the science as opposed to the politics. But one thing I want to add on top of that is when you start talking about COVID, you have to mention the 2 billion doses of COVID vaccines that China has exported. I believe that's 3 times the number that have been exported by the entire West. So the developed countries have been talking about the need, but they haven't followed through. China has been walking the walk, not just talking. And this goes towards China's claim, not only that it wants to have a common prosperity within China itself, but also how they're expanding. We're on the cusp of RCEP. We'll take Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership will take effect January 1st. And this is an effort to streamline trade for almost 1/3, a little more than 1/3 of the entire world economy. And it's desperately needed. So this is about a shared future. And you can say what you want about ideology. You can gather people together and say we're like-minded. But where's the action? Where are you actually helping people?
Yeah. As Anna mentioned about, of course, this RCEP basically will start on January 1st. And then China has also applied to join the CPTPP based on the previous version of Trans-Pacific Partnership, probably with a higher threshold, probably more strict standard, high standard for free trade. But anyway, it points to a direction of China joining the world, embracing the rest of the world, and promoting free trade, promoting multilateralism, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's very, very important. I think tomorrow the RCEP will be effective immediately after tomorrow, but also 2021 will be a landmark year. China officially applied CPTPP, which is designed and largely driven by the U.S. before. I mean, used all the U.S. design standards. China is not afraid of that. China is really embracing that. China actually applied for that, very, very actively embracing the globalization and higher standards. But also China also applied for DPA, which is regarded the digital agreement as well. So this year China has also in the WTO, China actually reached a service trade agreement with US, EU, and UK and many other countries. And also on plastic trade, China has issued a 64 ministerial statement. China goes along with that. But also on the G7 proposed this global corporate minimum tax. China also goes along with that. 130 countries has signed into that. So I think China is really busy building up the economic alliances and also economic cooperation. While we have AUKUS or Indo-Pacific, we have a lot of a security alliance built up at the same time. So I think it's really a contrast. China busy safeguard and promoting globalization, and by actively joining that, and also hope to join CPTPP, for example, is really great. Shows China's openness to the globalization and opening up. China just announced the shortening up the negative list, and also opened more area for multinationals to come in. Again, 2021 will be a year of record of China, embracing all those global framework and promoting globalization.
Mm-hmm. Well, Miguel, obviously, whether you call it a China model or not, China has been successful in many areas, including, of course, the pandemic control, the economic development, and also if you look at this environmental protection, that's very successful too, and also the space exploration. We have this Xihe, the solar exploration satellite, the first one of China, and also the Zhurong Mars rover, and the space station core module Tianhe. It's all happened in 2021. And China is open, obviously, to cooperation, in particular from European countries, right?
No, that is true. It's the year where the challenges, in a way, have been turned into opportunities to cooperate. Just before me, we were discussing the beginning of the Rcep, which is going to be another cooperation very important, not just with Europe, but with other Asian countries. For me, the Rcep is very, very important because it's not just a free trade agreement, a common market area. It is a way for 15 countries to join together. And these 15 countries, we must remember, they all have a different background. We have China, the 10 ASEAN countries, and then another 4, which I call Western countries, Japan, Korea, Australia, and New Zealand, that as we do in trade, they realize that the geography will be the key determinant of future cooperation. And when countries are close geographically to each other, it's very easy. And that's what they must do. They need to trade more with each other, exchange people, learn more about each other. And so, in my view, this is a great opportunity for China to jump into the Western world via these other 4 countries, they could actually be very pivotal in the smoothing all the tensions that China has with Europe and a lot with the United States. So in a way, they could be the ambassador, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and Korea, fully fledged democracy, so acceptable by Western standards, whatever that means, but that's how the West thinks. And they could be really the ambassadors of a potential cooperation, showing the world that working with China is beneficial for all. So in a way, I think this is the key cooperation agreement that has been achieved, and that the results of which we will start seeing from tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Well, speak of openness and welcoming, say, investors or visitors from other countries. President Xi delivered in his speech the message that China is ready for the Beijing Winter Olympics. Given 2008, successful opening, successful hosting of that event, and now Beijing again is hosting this Olympics event. And many people say that's a coming off party of China in 2008. And then, what about this one?
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I mean, 2022 will be, we're having the Beijing Winter Olympics. So Beijing will be the only city in the world that holds both summer and Winter Olympics. But I think that the 14 years in between is really significant, so that, we had this, the Summer Olympic of 2008. And, but also we have this Olympic of I think the line was really...
Okay, we probably
not
lost
very good, I suppose.
Huiyao. So obviously 14 years apart, but we are ready for another Olympic Games in Beijing.
Yeah, and it's hopefully it'll be a very, very nice one. Unfortunately, it's being tainted by politics, and the whole thing. Yes. The irony is that even during the Peloponnesian Wars, when Greek states were literally fighting each other, they would put aside those, the enmities and gather on the track and field to compete. They could do it then. There's no hot war going on between China and the U.S., but yet the U.S. Is bound and determined to kind of push a disinformation campaign and say that they have to withdraw. It's a pity. It's a derogation of the Olympic spirit, which when the U.S. is holding it is all important. Unfortunately, like many things in the world, if it's not the U.S. holding it, it's not that important.
Is there any expectation out of this event? Hopefully young people from many countries will get together, will learn from each other, will know more about each other, and know more about Beijing probably.
Well, I'm really hoping that there are other moments like there were at the Japanese Olympic Tokyo, mm-hmm. when they had, these just incredible sportsmanship, people right. wanting to do it. That is the spirit of cooperation, and that's exactly what the world needs more of today. I just want to add one thing. China has a tremendous number of problems, and it's going to continue. And Xi Jinping said it's a long road. He didn't declare victory. The issue is whether or not your government is moving to solve those problems. Unfortunately, with every solution comes new problems. But the whole point is that you have somebody who cares enough to go forward.
And continue to focus on the work and also the welfare of the people. Yes. Well, with that, we come to the end of today's show. Many thanks to our guests. You can also find us on CGTN app or on YouTube. I'm Xu Qinduo. Thank you for being with us. Happy New Year. See you next time.
I see a country on the move.
There's my opportunity.
Is it good to change so fast?
Yes, but it's a challenge.
We have one foot in the future.
But we never forget our past.
We need to talk to one another.
And listen.
More than 1 billion voices telling their stories. Rediscovering China, only on CGTN.